Switch doesn't have Forza, it doesn't have Gran Turismo, and somehow it has 20 of the most fun racing games ever made. Here they are. Nobody asked for a remaster of Crash Team Racing. They didn't need to. When Beenox dropped this in 2019, the community lost its mind, and for good reason. This is the kart racer that a generation of PlayStation kids swore was better than Mario Kart, and on Switch, it finally got a fair shot. Nitro-Fueled doesn't just restore the original. It rebuilds it from scratch, adds content from Crash Nitro Kart and Crash Tag Team Racing, and wraps everything in silky 60 frames per second gameplay. The drift mechanic is the secret sauce. Chaining boosts through corners isn't a gimmick. It's a skill ceiling that took competitive players years to fully map. Metacritic sits at 86, but Reddit and Discord servers will tell you the real score is higher. Beenox updated the game constantly post-launch with Grand Prix events, cosmetics, and characters nobody expected. Some of those Grand Prix skins became community obsessions. The track design, Cortex Castle, Papu's Pyramid, Turbo Track, holds up against anything in the genre. If you only play one kart racer on Switch that isn't made by Nintendo, this is the one. Open a map, pick any road, drive until something explodes. That's Burnout Paradise. Criterion's 2008 masterwork hit Switch as a fully loaded remaster, and it still feels like nothing else on the platform. Paradise City isn't a track, it's a playground. Every alley, every highway overpass, every parking garage is a potential shortcut, a crash site, or a launch ramp. The takedown system is pure joy. You can win a race by wrecking your opponent into a bus at 180 miles per hour, and the slow-motion crash cam makes you feel like a director every single time. This isn't a game about being the fastest. It's about being the most creative. The Switch version includes all DLC, Big Surf Island, legendary cars, motorcycles, making it the most complete version of Paradise ever released. Finding new roads you missed after 20 hours is a genuine thrill. And the original came out in 2008, but Burnout Paradise feels modern in a way most games twice its age don't. Architecture, flow, discovery. It got all three right. Die-cast cars on a kitchen table. That's the entire pitch, and it's enough. Hot Wheels Unleashed from Milestone arrived in 2021 and became one of the most genuinely surprising racing games in years. The tracks twist through living rooms, garages, and skate parks. The physics are arcade-tight but reward momentum management. And the cars, hundreds of them, recreate actual Hot Wheels toys with obsessive detail. The loop of collecting cars, customizing your garage, and uploading user-created tracks turn this into a community game. The track editor is legitimately deep. Players built circuits that Milestone couldn't have imagined. Metacritic landed at 80, but user reception was warmer. This became a word-of-mouth hit among people who expected little and got a lot. The progression system is tied to a blind box mechanic that some players found divisive, but the driving itself is irreproachable. Each vehicle class handles differently. Speed cars need space. Muscle cars grip differently than bikes. The visual design is outrageous in the best way. Neon loops and glass half-pipes in a bedroom the size of a football field. Pure toy box energy. Slow down. That's not what you expect from a racing game recommendation, but Art of Rally demands it. This game is about flow, not speed. About the perfect arc through a hairpin in rural Finland, a gravel road in Kenya, a mountain pass in Norway. Developer Fun Selector, a tiny two-person studio, built something that looks like a moving painting and plays like a Zen puzzle. The top-down perspective is deceptive. You think it'll be simple. Then you push too hard into a corner, lose the rear, and watch your car cartwheel into a birch forest in slow motion. The damage model is brutal and beautiful at the same time. Art of Rally covers the golden age of motorsport. Group B, Group A, Group S. Cars that were genuinely dangerous. The soundtrack is ambient electronic, perfectly suited to lonely mountain roads at dusk. Community reception was unanimous. This is a love letter to rally racing that doesn't require any prior knowledge of the sport to enjoy. It ran well on Switch, which isn't trivial given how demanding the aesthetic is. One of the most visually distinctive games on the platform. Every racing game wants to be F-Zero or Outrun. Hotshot Racing actually pulls it off. Sumo Digital and Lucky Mountain Games built this as a direct tribute to the polygonal arcade racers of the early 90s. The era of Sega Rally, Virtua Racing, Daytona USA, and they nailed the aesthetic down to the color palette and the way the track geometry pops. The cars feel planted and snappy. Drifting is committed and satisfying. The roster of 8 racers each has their own handling profile, which gives the small character select screen more depth than it appears. The Grand Prix mode is traditional and complete. But the real revelation is the multiplayer. 4-player split screen and online up to 8 players, all running at a locked 60 frames per second. In 2020, during the peak of pandemic gaming, this became a multiplayer favorite. Reddit threads called it the best arcade racer on Switch outside of Mario Kart. The pixel-wide gap between last place and first makes every race feel like it could go either way until the final corner. Nostalgia bait that transcends nostalgia. The race starts. Someone immediately drives the wrong way. An accordion bus shows up. Half the field is already flipped. Welcome to Wreckfest, the game where finishing in one piece is as much a victory as finishing first. Bugbear's Destruction Derby Racer is a legitimate physics showcase. The car deformation system models every panel, bumper, and axle in real time. It's not just visual. Damage affects handling. A broken front axle means you're fighting the car for every corner. The career mode offers proper racing alongside demolition derbies, figure of 8 madness, and lawnmower challenges. The lawnmower challenges. On Switch, the game sacrifices some visual fidelity compared to PC and current gen, but the gameplay is all there. Metacritic at 78 undersells it. This is a game about physics systems, and no other racer on Switch gets close to the tactile, chaotic satisfaction of a door-to-door battle where both cars are visibly falling apart. The community has been playing ranked matches and custom lobbies for years. Some people only play Wreckfest. Those people have made a reasonable life choice. Sumo Digital had already built one of the best kart racers on Xbox 360, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, and Team Sonic Racing strips back the franchise roster to focus entirely on the Sonic universe. That sounds like a downgrade. It isn't. The team mechanic is the reason this game exists, and it's the reason it stays interesting. Every race is 3-on-3, sharing items, slipstreaming teammates, and stacking the final overdrive boost. These aren't gimmicks. They're a strategy layer that no other kart racer on Switch has. Individual skill matters less than coordination. The track designs are some of the best in any kart racer. Casino Park, Booze House, Planet Wisp, rooted in Sonic lore and visually alive. The soundtrack is the work of Jun Senue, Hyper Potions, and other composers who treat a kart racer like a main series game deserves. Community reception was mixed early because people compared it to Transformed instead of evaluating it on its own terms. Give it those terms. It's a genuinely smart multiplayer game wearing a Sonic costume. F-Zero hasn't had a new game since 2004. Redout 2 didn't come to fill that gap. It came to obliterate it. 34 Big Things built an anti-gravity racer so fast that the tutorial explicitly warns you about sensory overload. Speeds exceed 1,000 kilometers per hour. Tracks loop upside down through alien canyons. The handling model requires you to actively lean into curves and manage your ship's pitch in real time. Passive driving is instant death. Metacritic at 80, but the community of hardcore racing fans is evangelical about this one. The career mode spans hundreds of events across a campaign structure borrowed from fighting games. The music, electronica, drum and bass, industrial, doesn't stop. The original Redout was already respected, but the sequel added competitive split screen, more track variety, and a deeper upgrade tree. On Switch, you lose some frame rate in handheld mode, but the essential experience is intact. If you've been waiting for Nintendo to announce a new F-Zero and getting tired of waiting, this is your game. Play it in TV mode with the volume up. Every car has two sticks. One controls your front wheels. The other controls your rear drift. That's Inertial Drift's entire mechanical revolution, and it completely redefines how arcade racing feels. Level 91 Entertainment created a game that looks like an anime fever dream. Bubblegum colors, hand-drawn backdrops, J-pop soundtrack, and plays like a precision instrument. The dual-stick drift system means that drifting correctly isn't a button press or a trigger hold. It's a physical skill that maps to your thumbs. Every car handles completely differently because every car's drift response is tuned independently. The story mode, told through visual novel sequences, is absurd and charming. But it's the time attack and local multiplayer modes that keep players coming back. This is a game that rewards practice in a way that most arcade racers don't bother with. When you finally nail the rhythm of a car that's been beating you, the satisfaction is disproportionate to what's on screen. A cult hit that deserves to be bigger. One of the most original racing games made in the last decade. Full stop. Rally racing on Switch doesn't have a lot of serious options. V-Rally 4 is the most serious one. Kyloton's reboot of the classic Infogrames series covers 5 disciplines: Rally, Hill Climb, Buggy, Rallycross, and Extreme Kana. Which means this is actually 5 racing games in a single package. The career mode is deep and unforgiving. Your team has salaries, parts wear out, poor results affect your budget. It's the closest thing to a rally management sim on the platform. The handling model is simulation adjacent, not Gran Turismo precise, but far more demanding than any arcade racer here. Dirt surfaces, gravel, tarmac, and ice all behave differently. The Extreme Kana events, tight urban gymkhana courses, are the standout mode, something no other racing game quite replicates at this level. Metacritic at 70 undersells the ambition. The Switch version has some frame rate inconsistencies that the community noted, but for players who want genuine rally challenge rather than arcade thrills, this is the only real option on the platform. The Rush Rally series is made by one developer, one person. Brown Monster's third entry is a technical achievement that has no business running as well as it does on Switch. 60 frames per second, realistic weather systems, full day-night cycle, split-screen multiplayer. It covers tarmac, gravel, snow, and ice. It has career, time trial, online multiplayer, and a stage generator that creates new tracks on demand. The handling model sits between simulation and arcade. Approachable enough for newcomers, deep enough for veterans to spend months in time trial chasing tenths of seconds. The community around Rush Rally 3 is small but obsessive in the way that simulation racing communities always are. People share setup guides. They post suboptimal lines for feedback. For a game that costs a fraction of what the big studio rally titles charge, it punches several weight classes above its price point. The Switch version holds up. This is the underdog racing game on the platform, and it's been quietly building a reputation for years among players who take rallies seriously.
40 right, 60. On the snow.
Overhead racing view. Mini-sized tracks. Maximum strategy. Circuit Superstars from Square Enix Collective takes the top-down perspective that Art of Rally uses for drama and applies it to circuit racing that's about tire management, pit stop timing, and fuel loads. This is a racing sim pretending to be a casual game, and the disguise is genius. The cartoon aesthetic makes it inviting. The pit stop minigame and the tire compound selection make it complex. Races that look like they'd last 2 minutes become tense strategy battles when you factor in track position, degradation, and whether you can make it one more lap before pitting. Up to 8 players local and online. The developer roster includes Formula One, Le Mans, and IndyCar-inspired cars, each with different balance profiles. Community reception was enthusiastic among fans of motorsport who wanted depth without a sim setup. This is the game that rewards watching real-world racing strategy. Knowing when to undercut or overcut actually applies here. That's an absurd sentence to write about a top-down cartoon racer. It's also completely true. There was a moment in the late 1980s when arcade racing was the most exciting genre in games. Top Gear, Outrun, Lotus, Horizon Chase. Turbo is built from the memory of that moment, not just the aesthetic. Acorus Game Studio recreated the feel of those games. The horizon stretching to infinity, the tokens to collect on track, the handbrake turn that costs you speed but looks incredible. With modern production values and impeccable feel. Each track is set in a real-world location. Cape Town, Rio de Janeiro, Los Angeles, Sydney. The style is loving and specific. The music, composed by Barry Leach, who did the actual Top Gear soundtrack, closes the nostalgia loop completely. Horizon Chase Turbo supports 4-player split screen and online co-op in World Tour mode. You can play the entire campaign with a friend simultaneously. The Switch version runs beautifully. Community polls consistently put this in the top tier of Switch racers, especially for people who grew up in the SNES era. One of those games where you start one track and look up 90 minutes later. The racing game library on Switch has a Mario Kart problem. Everything gets compared to it. Riptide GP. Renegade sidesteps the comparison entirely by being a hydrojet racer set in a flooded near-future city. Vector Unit's game predates most of the Switch library, but it holds up because the core loop is tight. Race hydrojets through submerged streets, use waves as ramps, pull off stunts mid-air to build boost. The progression system is RPG adjacent. Earn credits, upgrade your craft, unlock new trick slots. There's a proper career mode with cutscenes and rival characters. The handling is responsive and the stunt system adds a skill layer that pure speed racers lack. Community comparisons always land on Wave Race 64, which is the correct reference and the highest possible compliment. Nobody has made a proper Wave Race successor in 20 years. Riptide GP. Renegade is the closest thing on Switch, and it does enough on its own to stand apart from the comparison. 8-player online, 4-player split screen. Good value. The original Hot Wheels Unleashed proved the concept. The sequel expanded everything. Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. Turbocharged adds motorcycles, ATVs, and buggies alongside cars, which changes the physics vocabulary entirely. Bikes handle nothing like cars. That variety required players to actually learn new skills rather than just memorizing tracks from the first game. The track editor returned and was expanded. New environments, a theme park, underground ruins, gave the community new canvases. Milestone kept the foundation that made the original work and layered new systems on top rather than rebuilding. The result is a game that rewards players who spent time with the first entry while remaining accessible to newcomers. The visual design maintained the toy box philosophy. Everything looks like it belongs on a shelf at a toy store, and rendered with loving material detail. For fans of the original, this delivered everything a sequel should. For newcomers, it's the better entry point. More content, more variety, same excellent feel. One look at Victory Heat Rally, and you know exactly what it's going for. Super Monaco GP, Super Chase HQ, the sprite-scaling pseudo-3D racers that lived in arcades in 1990. Zona Games built this tribute with real craftsmanship. The scanline aesthetic, the cabinet sound design, the momentum-based handling that rewards reading the road ahead rather than reacting to it. It's a short game by modern standards. The content isn't deep, but what it does better than any other game attempting the same tribute. The car list is small and each vehicle handles distinctly. The track variety covers cityscape, desert, and mountain. The difficulty curve is perfectly tuned. Accessible immediately, hard to master. For a specific kind of player, one who had a Super Nintendo and loved what Kemco and Tatsumi were making in that era, this game feels like finding something that was lost. Community reception was enthusiastic in retro gaming circles. A niche title, but niche done right.
Medium left. Medium right.
The FIA World Rally Championship license meant something in 2019, when Kyloton finally cracked the formula that the series had been building toward for years. WRC8 introduced dynamic weather that changes mid-stage. You start in dry conditions. A rainstorm hits halfway. The grip level drops. The strategy shifts. The co-driver pace note system was refined to the point where following your navigator's calls actually mattered for competitive times. The career mode added a team management layer with mechanics, R&D trees, and a training schedule. These systems went deeper than anything the franchise had tried before. Metacritic at 80 reflected the genuine quality leap. On Switch, the game runs at reduced resolution, but the stage length and the immersion of proper rally, 12 minutes alone on a mountain road with a co-driver calling corners, translates completely. WRC8 is the game for players who want to feel like a rally driver rather than just look like one. It respects the discipline in a way that casual racers never need to.
And right 50.
You start with no car. You unlock the first one. You drive it into a corner. You spin out. You try again. That's the entire game for the first 2 hours, and it's the best 2 hours of frustration you'll have in any racing title. Fun Selector, the same studio behind Art of Rally, made Absolute Drift as a pure mechanics exercise. There's no career structure, no story, no power-ups. Just you, a car, and the geometry of a corner. The drift physics are hand-tuned to be unforgiving and readable. Bad inputs produce predictable results. Good inputs reward you with lines that look like calligraphy. The visual design is minimalist. White lines on dark backgrounds, which makes the motion of a well-executed drift stand out completely. 5 environments, 5 cars, a free roam mode, and the leaderboards that make you spend an extra 45 minutes trying to beat one stranger's time by 0.3 seconds. The Switch port is clean and runs without issues. Not everyone wants a racing game this stripped back. Those who do tend to play it for weeks. Free-to-play carries baggage. Disney Speedstorm carries it somewhat too. The monetization is aggressive, and the seasonal content model means some races and characters are time-limited. But under the economy is a kart racer with legitimate mechanical depth that most free-to-play games don't bother building. Gameloft tuned the handling to reward skill over items, which is the opposite of Mario Kart's design philosophy. Characters have class-specific abilities that synergize with teammate composition. The roster spans Disney and Pixar, Hercules, Jack Sparrow, Baloo, Mike Wazowski, with thematic tracks that commit fully to each IP. The visual quality for a free game is striking. The track based on Pirates of the Caribbean has no right looking as good as it does. Community reception splits between players who see the potential and players exhausted by the Battle Pass structure. If you can engage with the game on its own terms and ignore what it asks you to buy, there's a genuinely well-made racer here. For players who want to try a kart racer before spending money, the free entry point is actually a feature.